Welcome to Cyber Soul, the podcast where we dive deep into the digital chaos, explore the messy truths behind cybersecurity, and ask the questions no one else seems to be asking. I'm your host, Keelin Conant, and around here, we don't pretend to have all the answers. What we do have is curiosity, bold conversations, and a mission to understand how we stay secure and human in a world that feels increasingly hacked, digitally and emotionally. Each week, we sit down with the people building, breaking, defending, and redefining the future. Whether it's quantum computing, ransomware, disinformation, or the people behind the breach, we're going there. So buckle up. It's time to dig beneath the firewalls and into the soul of cyber. Hey there, welcome back to Cyber Soul, real talk for a hacked up world. I'm Keelin Conant, and today we're heading straight into the heart of the cyber war. Because let's be honest, it's not just about the bad guys and how they're winning. It's that we keep trying to fight them with fancier tech and forgetting there are humans on the side of this. Today's guest is someone who knows the truth better than most. George Al-Koura is a veteran chief information security officer with more than 15 years in the trenches, from military intelligence to commercial cybersecurity, from government ops to boardroom strategy. He's also the co-host of Bare Knuckles and Brass Tacks, a podcast that hits just as hard as the name implies. But here's what makes George different. He's not just talking about the cyber war. He's lived it. He's led teams through it. And yes, even as a CISO, he's been hacked. So we're going to talk about it. So if you've ever looked around and thought, how are the bad actors still ahead? Where did we go wrong? And is it too late to get this right? Buckle up. Hey, George. All right. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's really good to see you again, friend.
Yeah, it's great to see you. So we met at a conference, and what struck me was you were on a panel and you were talking about a situation that you'd been through, and there was just this vulnerability that I saw through you as you were asking for other people's opinions and support that I really hadn't seen in this space up until then. And I just really, really appreciated that real talk for a hacked up world, because I think we're throwing a lot of shiny objects at an issue that we really need to be looking at the human element. So you've got the resume, the battle scars, and the boardroom battles, and still you've experienced what so many leaders fear the most. You got hacked at one of your organizations. Can you walk us through what happened, not just technically, but emotionally? What did it teach you, and how did it reshape your approach as a security leader?
Yeah, no worries. For full context, it's not my current job. For folks that look me up, we've actually, knock on wood, been really fortunate there that we've been able to stop anything that we've kind of dealt with, and that's always something I count as a blessing. Considering every other organization before that I've experienced some kind of issue, whether as a consultant helping clients or whether running the corporate security. In this case, I actually ended up going up against good old APT-32, which is Fancy Bear, which is a Russian government and military, you could say, led or influenced organization. They're kind of a cybercrime group that's contracted out to the government. As folks aren't really aware, when it comes to Russian state actors and our Chinese adversaries do the same thing. They actually treat cybercrime groups like you would a boutique consulting shop. There are certain legislative mandates that they've put in, like in China, they have a 2017, I forget the name of it, it's like the military defense empowerment, not empowerment, basically in China, if you have any resources or you have any affiliation in your business or in your entity with the Chinese government or the Chinese state, they can actually utilize you for defense purposes. And that's across their entire supply chain nationally, which for a country like China is massive,
Right.
and creates an inherent risk issue just by trying to do business within that environment, even though there are potentially billions and trillions of dollars at play there. Most people who are veterans of InfoSec and cyber defense know this, so it's kind of a thing that in the business world it's not quite as talked about, but I think it's starting to become a little bit more evident now that we'll say we are in a high pressure tariff incubator where now everything has come under scrutiny. So we'll just be
Right.
political about that. But anyways, in my attack, pretty much it was a multi-phase attack. They actually came at us with a DDoS attack eventually, which was actually where the main attack was. But they had also in turn conducted a ransomware attack that was in parallel to the DDoS. So where they got in was another one of the senior executives in the organization happened to click on an email which they shouldn't have, and like at the end of the day, yes, we can talk about AI, we can talk about all these different things that they do to trick people and social engineer people. It's still eventually a human being either allowing a process, granting access, or clicking on a link.
Yeah.
Like the ways that they get in ultimately still lead to those kind of handful of threat vectors. So he got in, and so with my team, we were at the time trying to figure out, like, okay, cool. We are seeing directories get ransomed out, like file by file. We're like watching it live, and we're kind of tripping out. And the worst part about this, it's like it was a consulting shop that does a lot of government work. So on Fridays, especially like in the summertime, things are kind of people are bailing out, as I think
Yep.
in America is the same way.
Totally.
So we were like already short staffed in the office, and it was just like me and the skeleton crew, and just like, okay, what
Which
are we
was
gonna
probably planned by the threat actor, right? Like they tend to plan
Yeah, the
things
reconnaissance,
around
they,
that.
they understand kind of what people do because, again, they're human beings running a professionalized operation. And
Right.
even though this was like back, geez, at this point, like I think would have been about 5 or 6 years ago now at this point when this happened, they still understood through reconnaissance kind of how the ebb and flow of business works. And you can also detect as well, like if you have a beat into like network traffic that's coming out of an organization or an entity, right? Like if you are tracking enough accounts and you've done enough reconnaissance work, you can determine activity levels within that
Right.
organization based on what you're seeing in terms of spikes.
Right.
At day's end, metadata tells all. So don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. You can very easily track activities, track personnel, track all sorts of things based on information that's not even considered PII or anything like that. Like just tracking on computers, hey, this is a low activity day, and it always seems to be that way between May and like September. So people probably piss off early for the weekend. So if we're going to do something, right, that we're going to go after national holidays, we're going to go after known civic holidays, they're going to go after you where you are least in a position to respond. So they got in with this. At the same time, we were seeing massive network traffic in our firewall. So we knew that we were getting externally DDoSed. We knew that they got inroads in the organization. And, at that point, we're just like, okay, we have two major problems that are running concurrently that all, like, they can't have the same solution. And so what I ended up kind of having to do was sit back and be like, okay, cool. Let me talk to the CIO. And at that org, the CIO and I were like we were close friends and colleagues.
Yay.
So we were just
Good.
like, I remember because it was still before COVID. Like, yeah, it was before COVID. It was like 2019 then. Because we were at the physical office site. And I remember my office was like in the basement and his office was like a little bit down the hall. And we just sat down in my office, and I remember looking at him, just like, Okay, can I swear on the show? Is that
Damn right you can.
okay? Cool. As I was like, Tim, fuck, we gonna do, man? And Tim's freaking out, and like, I love like this guy, Tim Farrancone. He's an outstanding CIO. The guy worked in healthcare for decades, the defense sector stuff. I don't really know what he's up to right now, but probably still doing the same thing. He taught me a lot about how to build and run digital infrastructure, especially in a medium-sized business that deals with critical infrastructure information and classified material, unclassed material, all sorts of different data class. And it was a really important lesson for me because I had just come out of the SOC and that was like my first executive role. And I was like, okay, well, how do I be in charge of this? My job is no longer just chasing bad guys. I have to manage a budget, manage infra, make like strategic decisions with like,
Right.
18 to 36 month implications. So he helped me, and we thankfully had just finished our ISO 27001 compliance process. So, like, okay, cool. We know the org can handle this, and we have controls and safeguards. Let's prioritize what the problem is. And I think the biggest thing was one, I wasn't alone. So I had someone else that I
Right.
could be like, oh shit, this is crazy. I'm not like wrong to be freaked out right now, right? Like someone to sanity check you, which in the moment is like really important, especially like depending on your experience level when you're in that seat. You need someone who, like, thankfully Tim had been in the game for decades longer than me.
Yeah.
We kind of were like, okay, cool. This is the problem as we assess it. I'm seeing the same thing as you. Now what can we do?
Mm-hmm.
So having that person there, having someone with a little bit more experience, and if you're that experienced person, being able to kind of realize like, okay, who are the chiefs and who are the Indians in this situation? Like,
Yeah.
who do we have to talk to, like from a leadership standpoint? And then when you're talking to your operator analysts, like who's doing what? How do we triage this? Like, how are we organizing this whole thing? And a lot of it comes down to, preparation in advance. So knowing the SOPs. In an ideal world, having done a tabletop exercise or two to check, like, practice going through these scenarios.
Yep.
In this situation, I think we'd only done one TTX at the time. Like we were really trying to mature the shop, but like
But
other
you've done one, so that's good because that's more than some companies ever do.
oh, totally. But
Yeah.
it's tough when you're trying to go through a digital transformation process with a whole company, and it's like it's a public, primarily public sector consulting company. So like you are fighting for tight margins. You're constantly fighting for budget. You're really, really trying to understand how do I explain ROI to the board for scenarios that haven't occurred yet, but because of the space we play in, we have to consider these things, or else we won't be considered a safe supplier by our clients. Right?
Right.
So it's critical infra is a different world.
It sounds like you guys really did all of the right things, and there was still an attack happening. Like you have, I mean, not every company even has a CISO and a CTO, right? So it's awesome that you guys got along, and we're on the same page and could lean on each other. And then you'd gone through your compliance, you'd had the right things, you were catching it while it was happening, and it still was happening, right? So
Well, it's a human issue. Like look,
yeah,
man, at day's end, the state of defensive technology is such, and it's been this way for like I'd say since at least 2017, 2018. Most like security technology and most ITSM, like IT software management like type solutions, like Manage Engine, that kind of stuff, they all have like native security capabilities. Like even Microsoft, before like Defender became their big solution, it was still just like their native security application within their cloud service set within Azure. So
right.
like you could, in theory, set up enough controls and roadblocks that like you can repel most attacks. When the attackers get you, it's because they found a way to interact with the employees and they're duping
Mm,
the employees at the human level. That's how they get in. Almost like 98% of the time. Like I'm
yeah.
sure like there are some brute force attacks that actually work. There are some organizations that are really, really freaking sloppy with their config management, which is why companies like Wiz are such a big thing. And, they'll get in because they'll find the open ports or they'll find like the misconfigured S3 buckets. They'll find the parts of the infrastructure that are weak and then they'll expose that way. That's always a concern. But if you're actually, relatively well managed from an ITSM standpoint, config management's good, security process is good, it's still going to come down to somebody with the right level of access doing something unfortunate. And I don't want to say dumb because shaming people doesn't do fuck all to help us. It just
It
makes people
doesn't.
feel bad and then they don't want to
Yeah.
learn anything and then the situation stays as is. You
Hmm.
have to look at it like, okay, why did this error occur? And so in the case of the attack, the thing that like the DDoS I wasn't too worried about because like you can deal with that with rate limiting. You can do certain things from a perimeter security standpoint to kind of repel that, and we did.
Hmm.
And a lot of technology solutions now, like shout out to Cloudflare. If you have Cloudflare, they can usually repel most DDoS attacks. But if you have someone that they've clicked on that email and they got duped by it, or they, for whatever reason, thought that the CEO wanted you to do this favor and they wanted you to issue out
Buy a
some
bunch of
Apple,
tokens.
yeah, or like Apple gift cards or whatever crypto thing now it
Or if the
is.
toll roads are texting you from a, European phone number or whatever.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
the classic DHL delivery, which is like what they love.
Right. But so my question is because this is like, my whole premise around Cyber Soul is really talking about the human, right? Like the
Mm.
human element of all this. And it does feel like we're behind the threat actors. It feels like they're outsmarting us every day. We're being outpaced. And, like, do you think that we've taken a wrong turn in the industry? Or do you think that, do you even think that there's an answer to this human problem?
I think the biggest piece is education. And
Yeah.
like even just trying to recite the story to you, it's like it's a hack isn't just a simple thing to explain. And I think that's something that people need to understand when they're talking about this, because it's easy to talk about, oh, well, I'll just hack this person or this person will get hacked or whatever. It's like, no, it can be easy. But if you're doing, or if you're talking about it in the context of a company or an enterprise, there are a lot of nuanced things that need to happen, right or wrong,
Yeah,
for this thing to occur.
right.
And humans are very much part of that process. And so that's where training comes in. That's where building security culture comes in. That's
Hmm.
when, if you're a startup, you have to start thinking secure by design. Like
Yeah,
before you'd have startup founders who are like, I have this great idea, and then I'm just going to like vibe code this thing into existence and manifest it. And you're like, all right, cool. Now you have like shitloads of code layer vulnerabilities. And if you're, taking over from an organization that's been around for a little bit and you're trying to digitally transform it, you probably have a ton of legacy issues as well. And
yeah.
so the human factor is we deal with business pressure because we have to generate revenue. So
Hmm.
we have to think about product, we have to think about go to market, we have to think about sales. And then the engineers and the people who are trying to run this ship to keep it on the water, they're all out there trying to be like, hey, so all these technologies that you guys want to use to make cool products and make compelling customer narratives, the bad actors are using to convince our personnel to give them the access to pwn us, right? And
Yeah,
that's a conversation that if they don't understand at a board and senior leadership level and they don't articulate that culture of like, hey, we need to have good personal cyber hygiene. We need to be careful about what our social media footprint looks like. We need to not, be careless about our emails, not be careless about information that we give out. We have to put in like good file management, right? Like we have to have encryption where there's encryption,
yeah.
following the standards of like PII and GDPR and those types of compliance mandates. It's really annoying and it's a distraction if you're like, I'm a product guy or I'm a dev and I just want to dev things.
Yeah.
But this is the state of business that we live in. And if you don't think security from the start, your business is just not going to do well in this economy.
Yeah, well, and here, cheers to that. And also, I think a lot of business owners are out there can kind of, crossing their fingers, thinking, I know I should do these things. I don't have the budget. I don't see the ROI. I have insurance, but I don't think what the business owners really can always understand or see is what like we've both seen. The cost of it is definitely millions of dollars if they're extorted. But the reputation of being down, the money's lost of being down, and then the emotional toll it takes not only on the data that's been leaked and maybe your consumers, but also on your team itself. I mean, I've seen people have heart attacks. I've seen people quit. I've seen people be fired, and that's a ripple effect into the communities as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of like changing of the stigma about being breached as well. Because I've been saying for years like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
When,
And as long as you've built up the right mitigations and you've done like good business continuity and disaster response planning, you'll be fine. Like ultimately for us, we ended up shutting down the server and just putting in our DR process and just using like the scan from yesterday to just stand
yep,
everything back up. We basically hit reset on the game.
awesome,
And like you could sit there and try and fight it and try to look to see like, hey, where's this presence in the environment, blah, blah, blah. Or, you build these processes out and you invest in them for when like they're
prior,
exactly, right? You
yep,
have to you have to invest in advance because it's gonna happen. Now, I think there's a thing to be said for cost optimization. I think we don't need to go down like the best in breed route if you are a relatively new business or you're an SMB. I don't really like the way platformization has happened now because you have a lot of companies that get known for doing like one thing and they
right,
want to expand like their TAM. So that's like, let's just build products doing all this stuff. And then you're
yeah,
like, I don't know you for this. I don't want to trust this. It's probably janky. You threw it together in like two life cycle roadmaps and like, I don't even know what you guys do with this. So I think we are in a state in the market where the security suppliers that we currently have are all trying to fight for the limited dollars left. Interest rates have kept
right,
going up, and so dollars are getting much more difficult to get buy-in to spend. And if you're just a small shop and you're like trying to look up like what technology do I need to secure my business, then that turns into a problem. That turns into like, I'm confused. I don't know what to do from here. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of business leaders now kind of have to like accept, hey, we can only afford this much, or we only have this amount of hours with this amount of resources. You can go to a managed service provider and they're a cost affordable way to still get the services that you need. And part of their onboarding integration process will be to look at your environment and actually try to improve it, to at least like be able to receive the services. So I think managed services and outsourcing is the most logical first step for a small business that's trying to actually do something and they can't
Yeah.
afford in-house resources. And I think, like I started in a managed services shop. That's how I learned cybersecurity as a business. And then I see the benefits of the model. I think if your shop is committed to delivering value to clients and you're not just trying to, razzle dazzle them by scaring them into like buying whatever the next thing is you're trying to push to them, and actually be like, hey, this is all you actually need. We'll grow with you, but you don't need to overspend. The customer's going to appreciate that. And it's going to build trust between the cybersecurity provider and the actual client. I think until we reach a point in our economy that all people who want to get into owning a business understand a little bit enough about cyber to make those decisions, it's really a game of trust building. It's all about, again, the human interaction, the human relationship. How are you delivering value for this 500 or 2000 a month or whatever you're charging? And I think if we're having honest conversations about why you need these services and why we need to protect your business this way, we're going to start seeing a lot less breaches and compromises because people are going to start looking at the problem correctly from the start.
Right. I love that. I love that. Okay, thank you. Because as for Alvaca, where I work, we're a mid-market MSP, and it really is about the human element, the trust, and more larger companies are outsourcing their IT and having someone amazing like George on their payroll, but also trusting an MSP like Alvaca to come in and do some of the other, the work that needs to be done.
Sorry, just to put a plug in for your company, you guys have a great
Yeah.
professional services arm too, right?
We do. Yeah, that's what I
Exactly.
head
So it's
up.
not just managed.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about your military experience, which is rare and powerful in the commercial space. I actually used to work for a defense contractor as well in Los Angeles. I worked for a radar factory, which is what I
Oh,
called it.
cool.
We
Nice.
actually built the radars on site, but I worked in the software department. So I worked with a lot of ex-military, and their work ethic and mindset were really awesome. And it was really the first time in my life I was exposed to military mindset in general, because I didn't have any veterans in my family. I do now, the younger generation. But how does that mindset shape the way you lead today? What are some of the biggest blind spots you see when it comes to corporate strategy and security?
Well, the biggest thing is companies don't pay to train people anymore, right?
I
Like
know.
they expect you to be fully baked when they hire you, which for a lot of people, like they might have a cert, they might have a post-secondary degree or college or something, but that's not actually going to get them ready to enter the workforce specifically for, whatever advanced job you're giving them.
Hmm.
So the training piece is a big benefit. And I think really understanding how to deal with other human beings in various degrees of high tempo and high stress is the biggest thing. I
Yeah.
went to the military college in Canada, which is like our West Point. I went to the Royal Military
Hmm.
College, and it's a big leadership school. That's why my degree was like politics and psych, and a lot of my psychology was like, you know, performance psychology, influence theory, understanding how to get the most optimization out of people. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, when you're a leader in the army, that's what they hire you for.
Right.
I think the corporate world, you know, it could benefit from a lot more folks who are mission oriented, who achieve their objectives, who understand that like there's an ethical way about going about it. You don't need to screw people over to get the job done. And you
Right.
also can do business in an ethical way as well, where, if you know what's right, you know what's wrong, you know how to build partnerships that are real, that can stand the test of time, that can build resilience. The military teaches you how to have those enduring relationships that last over decades, and a lot of my network. are people that I knew from my time in uniform, and they're all in industry
Mm.
now, and they're doing well, and we all stay in touch together. We're all seeing each other, and the chemistry that we had when we were, relative nobodies doing the thing in the war on terror over a decade ago, it's still the same vibe now. So I think those relationships and understanding how to interact and deal with people, those are very, very distinct advantages for folks who have that military experience. I think where it's hardest for folks coming out of the military is one, translating your resume and your experience into something that, a hiring company can understand and see the value in. And I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of coursework and some really great coaches out there to help with that specifically. And then just understanding like what it is you're good at, what it is you're not, maybe, or maybe not to say not good at, where you have room for improvement and growth,
Right.
and where to actually demonstrate the most value that you have to give to an organization and how you can grow your career. Because as well, the other thing in the army is, you know, someone else, for like 90% of people, they're handling your career succession. Someone else is telling you you're going to get posted here, you're going to do this
Right.
thing, you're going to do this op, you're going to do this mission, and we're going to send you to this place, and you'll be this rank by this time. So they don't even have to think about it. But now, in the corporate world, you're your own career coach. You have to build those networks, you have to build those
Right.
opportunities. So I think that's where maybe some military people have some difficulties breaking into the business world.
Yeah.
But learning from one another, you get this like holistic, well-rounded individual that knows how to lead, knows how to play the politics, knows how to be an IC or someone who delivers, and
Right.
they know how to have strategic vision. So I think it's just, if we step back and invest a little bit more in training new hires, and we started to really build that culture as soon as someone's onboarded, I think the commercial sector can benefit from all the good things about the military without even having to go on a big, post army hiring spree.
Right. I love that. I think, yeah, I think it's really important. And again, we're going back to the human element, creating culture, taking care of our people, and seeing where there's room for improvement and, championing those people to round out their expertise. I love that. Okay, so we're running out of time here, but I want to do a lightning round with you. You ready?
Go for it.
Okay, so don't think too hard. I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you. One, one cyber myth you'd love to kill forever.
There is no such thing as a turnkey solution. That just,
Love
it doesn't
that.
exist. And every organization requires a different thing. Every problem has its own nuance. I know companies love talking about their thing as the be all end all, and in almost 10 years of doing this, I've yet to see it.
Wow, that's awesome. It's true. It's true, and it takes building relationship to implement any of these as well. It's not
Mm.
just turnkey, but like it really is building trust with the vendor and with the team there. So I love that. Okay, security in 5 words or less.
Ooh, that's a good one. Being prepared for the unexpected.
Yep, I love that. That's so good. Good job. That was a hard one.
Mm.
What's a show or a book that you're into right now?
Oh, I'd say I'm really, really into, I have it right here, the Simon Sinek book that I take everywhere with me. I just gotta
Which
pull it
one?
out.
Which
My
one? Love
apologies.
Simon Sinek.
The
So
Infinite Game. I
nice.
absolutely love this book. It's changed the way that I approach business. It's changed the way that I approach planning out my life, and just understanding that, if you're in a business or you're doing it could be a relationship, any kind of project that's long term, there
Hmm.
is no end point. Like there is no winning the game of business. You are always going to be in this game. And
Yeah.
so you have to set up habits to enable continued success, because even once you get that goal, you get that corner office, there's always still something more
Then
that you're
what's
going to want to go
next?
after. So you
For
have to have the right
sure.
mindset.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm definitely going to check that out. I have a couple audibles in my bank right now, so I need to,
Nice.
that's going in. Okay. Last but not least, one thing that still keeps you up at night.
Yeah, so, not to get too political, but just saw the headlines today. The president's cutting off the trade talks with us in Canada, primarily over a digital services tariff. And it's something that I have legitimately been concerned about and lost sleep over since. the tariff war started, we are in a heavily integrated supply chain between Canada and the
Right.
US, and we use a lot of American software manufacturing. Those additional costs, when you're already running on a shoestring, when you're in keep the lights on,
Yeah.
it's devastating on a business. And you know, we love our American brothers and sisters. We love the technology they
We love you
provide.
too.
It's the way we do business is together. So now having to look at what can we get in Europe, what can we get in Asia, can we even trust these partners when we're
Right.
used to just doing business with our American friends and American suppliers? This is going to make, budget management and procurement a whole new nightmare. It's going to be a headache, and it's going to distract us from the core issue, which is improving our ability to deliver services to our clients, getting better
Yeah.
technology at a better deal. We're going to end up making some desperate decisions because we can't be facing 25 to 40% hikes on renewals when you're a small to mid-sized shop. It is just the bottom line. And it worries me even for a business like yours, where you guys might have clients in Canada. And so if you guys have software baked into the service you're providing, suddenly can we afford to work with you guys? Or you might
Right.
want to because the personalities and the trust are there. This
Right.
is the thing that I think any real leader in our space, they should be losing sleep over it because these are our budgets and this is the quality of our ability to deliver for our clients and for our organizations.
There's that fire I saw in Florida too. Thank you for that. You probably should run for office yourself at some point. You're such a great speaker. But duly noted. And the political landscape is a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of, I mean, even our own infosec for the federal government is being, as we call it here in the States, doged, right? There's a lot of shifts that are happening, and we're there's a worry. There's definitely a worry, especially about infrastructure and things like that. So I think having conversations like this and all of us staying friendly no matter what happens is going to save us, keeping the community right alive,
I'll
and figuring out creative ways
I'll,
to.
I'll tell you right now, I'm one of many Canadian leaders in industry. I have been to America every single month since this whole
You
thing
have.
started. I will refuse to stop coming to America. That is where business is. That is where the best are, and you're our allies. Like I served I served in theater with you guys, and I was a SIG enter. Like I don't
Mm,
know my life without dealing with the Navy, dealing with NSA, dealing like
yeah.
there's too
Right.
much history. We cannot
Yeah.
just walk away from this.
Yeah, and I think that we as citizens will rise up. I mean, my dad lived, I told you,
Hmm.
my dad lives in Canada, and my that side of my family is Canadian. So I have personal love and respect for, for our our community. So we get to keep fighting the good fight. So with that said, I've got one last question. What's one thing every cyber leader should stop doing tomorrow? And what's one thing they should start?
I think one thing they should stop doing is buying into the marketing hype of AI because I
Yeah.
think it comes up at every panel, every talk I go to, every event I go to, every dinner I go to, it comes up. And outside of certain use cases and certain threat vectors, it is just not this. It's a paper tiger. It's not the behemoth that people think it is. I'm more in the Marcus Hutchins line of thinking. If anyone in the cyber world knows Marcus, he's probably one of the best hackers alive right now, and he's very active on social.
Maybe I can get him on the show.
If you can get him, power to you. He's
I'll manifest
outstanding.
that now.
He actually got arrested. He got arrested, I think, by the FBI on a GCHQ warrant from Britain while he was in McCarran Airport in Vegas after leaving Black Hat over
Wow.
some shit that he
Wow.
did like a decade ago. So there's a whole story. I'd look him up. But yeah,
Okay.
but my whole point is just you know we we need to go back to a place where we're sticking with the security basics and the fundamentals,
Hmm.
and we need to look at good infrastructure security, good data security, access management, and we need to go back to training our people. We need to create this culture where we are talking about cyber hygiene like in a common language so people in our
Yeah.
organizations understand. If we stop talking about this, agentic AI bullshit, I could really care about AI bombs and all this stuff, and go back
Right.
to being like, hey, can we look at your digital footprint online? Are you being safe with your data? Are you being safe with how you handle your emails and communications? Are you not being reckless with where you log in with your work laptop and whatever cafe or whatever airport lounge you're at? If we go
Right.
back to the basics, we
Mm,
can fight off a lot of these problems, but we're getting
I
way
love
too
it.
far out into the weeds and we've lost track of like what makes an organization secure.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And it's like generational knowledge is kind of starting to slip. It's like, an assumption of, we've done this so many times, so I'm assuming that you know how to do it.
Mhm.
I love that because, cybersecurity is a human thing. It really is. So, with that said, that's all for this episode of Cyber Soul. George, thank you so much for showing up with honesty, fire, and humanity. You can find George on LinkedIn and catch his podcast, Bare Knuckles and Brass Tacks, wherever you listen to podcasts. If this conversation hit you, please, please share it. Text it to your team or drop me an email and tell me what landed. We'll be back soon with more truth, more tech, and more soul. Until then, patch your people and don't forget, cybersecurity really is a human thing. See you next time.